Welcome to Impact 2023, our continuing conversation where we talk about all types of topics: race, religion, politics, current events, everything that you can think of. We talk about here in a free, open, safe space where we can have our conversations and we can talk about it from a Christian point of view. And as always, what we do is we ask that everyone who is viewing, please feel free to type your questions and your comments into the comment section. This is a continuing conversation, and so we ask that you participate. You don't just want to hear me talk. Let's go through and get your comments and your questions in there. And as they are put into the chat section or the comment section or whatever you want to call it, they will be addressed. And so let's hop right into it as we always do. All right. Well, as you may know, as you should know, as I expect you to know, COVID is back. What recently has occurred is that the federal government has just approved another booster shot for COVID. And whether or not you're one of those people who believe in COVID, didn't believe in COVID, was somebody who put in a lot of precautions or not precautions, this discussion needs to come back. And the discussion has to come back again. And what does the discussion need to be? Numerous ones. What are you going to do? Blah, 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 blah. But from a church standpoint, and just like from the business standpoint, what all the businesses are doing, the church need to do the same thing. What lessons did we learn from last time? And what are we going to do going forward this time? Last time, for example, what the church learned was, our members are not guaranteed. A lot of churches lost a lot of members. As soon as we went virtual, a lot of them scattered, have not even come back as of this day. And many churches have lost their numbers and haven't been able to regain. We learned that we don't have that hold on people and that people are not committed unless they are continuously going. And so we lost out in that way. What is another thing we learned? Here's one that I learned from churches or from being in church, with a large number of people who call themselves Christians being opposed to wearing masks. And clearly, you may not have been doing some of the work that you're supposed to have been doing in the first place. Because if you have been visiting the sick on a consistent basis, if you've been going to places to visit the sick or visit the poor or visit those in need, before COVID got here, there were plenty of opportunities and plenty of places where they told you need to mask up. You need to put a mask on. And put a mask on in order to protect others. Put a mask on if you're going into a nursing home or a place where there's elderly or a place where they're sick and the most vulnerable. You need to put a mask on, not to protect yourself, but to protect them. And so if you had some kind of aversion to putting on a mask, if you had some kind of complaint about putting on a mask, and you were saying, well, mask this and mask that, and I believe all the conspiracy theories and things like that, well, clearly there must not have been that connection between you going and visiting and doing the work that you're supposed to do to visit those who are most vulnerable and to participate with that, because you would have been already exposed to the fact that people ask you to wear masks all the time, especially in the medical community, and you would understand what masks are for, not to protect yourself, but to protect others. It is a gesture to help those others. And so what we learned is that a lot of people had those complaints. A lot of people were saying, well, I don't want to wear a mask. Well, a lot of people had never been out there into the weeds, into the field before to help other people because they would be more familiar with that type of situation. And so those are two big ones, two big learnings. But we also need to understand, if we go back into a situation where there's a lot more COVID, and people are getting sick all the time, co-workers that are sick and have caught stuff, and there's a lot more people who are just getting sick, but they're not getting tested the same way as they were, so they're pretty much walking around with COVID. But getting back to what are we going to do this time around? If it ticks back up, if people have to be separated again, how are we going to react? How are we going to make sure that what happened last time was losing large populations of our folk going to churches and being, and not even that, but just being a community person? How are we going to prevent it from not getting worse? And it's a conversation that we need to have, not just with COVID, but just in general, because who knows what the next major event will be. And what is our position and posture when it comes to dealing with people in the public? What comes our posture when it comes to dealing with those who are sick and shut in? Or do we kind of try to hide and do whatever? So this is a real conversation, a real learning from what happened. If you're one of those people who believe, as many do, and I'll say this, I fall into this category. If you're one of those people who believe that God allowed COVID to hit for us to deal with some realities and some truths, then what are those realities and truths and the learnings from those realities and truths that we were able to come up with? I believe that was allowed to happen so that one, we had too many fair weather people just sitting around taking up space. And so you have this false impression that our church is filled with people who believe in God, and we got church with people who believe in community and believe in helping others. And then the reality is you clean some of that out and you realize, well, we didn't have as many go hards as I thought we did. And I think that's important to know. Because maybe our message wasn't right. Maybe our approach wasn't right. Maybe we weren't asking enough of the people who we had here. Maybe we were asking too much. Who knows? I don't know. But I know that there was a situation in my mind of there needed to be some cleaning out so we can figure out, well, what side are you really on? You just here just because you've always been here, or you here because you want to be here and you believe. Comment. COVID became a perfect excuse to stop attending church. This means no sacrifice of time or money. Absolutely. And truth, it did. It gave the perfect excuse. I have no clue, and this is me being a church guy since day one. What are you doing on Sundays? It's not even anything going on for real. I don't even understand. Like I for the life of me, I don't even know what's you're doing brunch? Like, is that what are you filling this time with? For those of us who've been going to church, for those of us now, I'm not talking about people who don't go to church. They've always filled their time with whatever they fill their time with. But those of us who were consistently going to church all the time, what are we doing on Sunday now? How does it even feel right? Like, what are you doing? I don't understand from the morning to the afternoon. What are you filling your time with? I don't know. But yeah, COVID did. It became that excuse for those who want to get away, and they only got away because there was a break and an opportunity. And so what that leads is to how committed were they from the jump? If most of us, our faith isn't that strong. One bad event, one losing our job, some kind of terrible disaster, somebody in our family that we're very close to passes, you lose all your money on a bad bet or a gamble in Vegas or something like that. We're one bad event away from losing our faith. I think that's where a lot of people are, and that's what COVID was. And I think that was a reality that most of us just, we know it, but we weren't really clear with. But then the question for the people who are still here is what are the lessons and learnings that we need to do? How do we approach it? And so, if COVID hit again the same way, what would we do differently? Would we decide, all right, we don't need masks, and we're just going to come to church, and we're going to have faith in God that we're going to stay safe? Some people took that approach, and a lot of people ended up getting sick and dying off of that approach. Is that an approach? Was that the right approach? Was the right approach? Let's mask up and let's follow all the rules and let's make sure that we're safe and just bring people in and still encourage people in to come in. Or was the best approach to let's go virtual and let's stay virtual and let's just operate like that and figure out how to be an effective virtual ministry. Or like some people, let's go outside. Let's all sit in our cars. Let's be creative in some of the different ways that we were able to do things. What was the natural learnings? I do know one thing from my standpoint, because I want to make sure it's clear. From my standpoint, what it did was for a lot of us who were stuck in our ways of, and we, people would preach on it all the time. You hear pastors come and saying it all the time. You can't just sit inside a church and think that people are going to come in. You got to get outside these four walls. And that was a common theme that you would hear people say. But no one, we didn't really do it. Even when we got outside the four walls, we were still in the parking lot. Yeah, we're gonna leave the comfort of our four walls, and we're gonna have a bake sale in the parking lot. We still ain't got outside the church. And so what it did was it challenged us to be a lot more creative, a lot more inventive, and to get outside of our comfort zone. All of us should have been having some kind of way to get our message out beyond the four walls. Now, I remember when I was young, even they used to do the tapes all the time. We used to make the tapes of the sermons that occurred. But at the end of the day, you had to be inside the church to get the tapes. The only other way is if you had a friend or a family member who heard the tape and then distributed the tape. But that was inventive, and it was a way to do things, but it still wasn't really getting outside of the four walls. And I think that's what COVID made us do. We had to get outside the four walls because we have to be able to touch the people who don't live anywhere near us. And so if you at the house, I got to get outside my four walls to be able to broadcast to your house. Comment. In the Word of God, we see that God works best with a faithful remnant, a faithful few. And I think that's what it ended up being for a lot of us. Consistent with the Word of God, that it has to be just a remnant, that it has to be a few. You want to be able to touch as many people, but the workers, as it says, the laborers are few. And so we saw that, and I think we realized that. But I think we also, in realizing that the people who are actually going to do the work is few, we have to be, unfortunately, we have much more work to do. Before you came in, you had to open up the church. Make sure that you had programs and things going on. Now you have to open up the church. You have to make sure the church is clean to a COVID level. You have to make sure that your programs are not only available for those inside the four walls, but outside the walls. You have to, make sure that there's so many other moving parts going on. Evangelism was, all right, we can go out and go door to door. You can't even really do that. You have to figure out how to do things. And most of us have to figure out how to do things without a lot of money. And so as COVID comes back, what learnings did we have? Another comment. Perhaps persons who are not motivated to attend church or to be the church were actually a hindrance to the work of the church. They needed to be moved. Yeah, because for some people, why were you here? And if you were not here, you may have still been motivated to attend church, but why were you here? And so you're actually in the way of the work. You were here just to have a position. You were here, just kind of hang out. You were here because, it looked good. Everybody else was going there. Whatever reason you were here. And then when it comes time to do things, or it comes time for decisions to be made, you may not be looking to do more stuff. And so you may vote things down or be in the way or discouraged because you barely want to be here in the first place. And I think an opportunity for some of those people to kind of get out of the way, to be removed from the situation. It gave them an excuse to leave. And again, I think it was some clarity there that came in for a lot of us, where we realized not only that we don't have a lot of people, but we realized that some of the people that were here were kind of fair weather folk, or people that just really, maybe didn't really need to be in the spots that they need to be in. So we needed some folk who were dedicated. Also, I think that some motivations, what happened with some people is you got an opportunity and a chance to reevaluate why you're here. And so if you thought that you were here for one reason, you get to go home and sit back and you got to make a decision. Do I want to go back into the building? Why was I going in the first place? Do I really believe in God? Do I really believe in this church? Do I really believe in what's going on and what's being said? And I think a lot of people had an opportunity to sit back and think about that. Do I really want to put my time, sweat, and money into this? Do I believe that this particular brand, going to the church, this particular brand and model, of religious model of going to the church, giving up my time and my money and my effort is the way? Or is it, I'm going to be like those people who try to have their own relationship and they can figure it out on their own, even though that goes against what the word actually says if you're reading it. But there's some people who get on that model of, I'm going to figure out my own spirituality and my own, I'm going to be the creator of my own religious doctrine. And so it gave people an opportunity to evaluate, which is, it's a pure way of sitting back and looking at it. It's like when we have to sign the covenant from most people sign it, but if you really had to sit back and think, all right, do I want to sign up for this again? Do I still believe what I believed last year when I signed that paper? And I think that's what COVID did. It basically said, and I think this is the beautiful part about what happened. And I'm okay, and I'm okay with this happening again. The beautiful part about this is we would talk about people in the Bible, and we would talk about not even people in the Bible. We would talk about people post-Bible, kind of like in the earlier times, when people were being persecuted at a high level for their faith. And we talk about and we kind of relate, would I be able to do the same thing? And then you got that moment where you have COVID out here. And it's not a life or death moment, but there is a tinge of danger out there. And you have to ask yourself, is my faith, is my church, is my walk, is my responsibility with God important enough that I can put myself in a little bit of harm's way, in a little bit more elevated danger? Because I can stay in the house. I can be safe up in my house with my AC running and my air purifiers and all of that kind of good stuff. I could just sit up in the house. Or I can take that step to go out here and I can do what I've been asked and tasked to do. Because if I go to church, they might ask me to go out into the community. And so now, not only am I out the house, not only did I go to church, but now they talking about going out here and helping out the homeless and talking about feeding people who are food insecure. They're talking about gathering materials to be able to give to the kids. I got to get near kids. Disease after disease after disease, and I'm putting myself at risk. Am I willing to do that for my neighbor? Am I willing to do that for my faith? And so I think, it was that kind of question or that kind of determination I think people had to make is how real am I, or how hard in the paint, to use some common terms, how hard in the paint am I going to go for this? Am I willing to put myself a little bit out there into harm's way? And if I catch it and something bad happens, am I okay with that? Because on the other end, you had some crazy people out there who was okay with it. I think about this one guy. I'm not gonna say his name, but he owned a pizza place, Black gentleman. And the reason I bring up his race is because he was a Black Republican, which you don't really see a lot. And he decided, that he didn't believe in COVID, and he put his life at risk in order to go to a political rally. And as a result, got COVID and died. He was comfortable with putting himself out there for his politics. But am I comfortable putting myself out there for God? If at the end of the day, he went to that rally and he died, and so we can't ask him. But if we did ask him, we'd be like, "Was it worth it?" I would hope he would say no, but he might be like, "Yeah." Would we put ourselves in that same position, in our same shoes for our faith? If I went out here and I helped and I fed, and I made sure people were okay, helped out with housing, did all the things I was supposed to do. I caught COVID. I'm sitting there on the sick bed. They're about to put me on a respirator, and they say, "Well, you're not coming back out. Was it worth it?" And what would my answer be? I know mine would be yeah. But I think that's the question that people needed to ask themselves. And where is your faith real? Because if your faith is real, then you would put yourself in that situation, and you would be able to go through that. And it would be, you don't want to. Absolutely nobody is sitting here saying that I want to get sick and die. But if it came down to it, and that's the reason you died. That's what they said at your funeral, instead of saying, he loved politics. He went out to that convention and he caught COVID and died. That would be a crazy thing to say. But if you said, well, he loved the Lord and he loved his community, he went out here and he caught COVID and died, are you okay with that? And I think that's what people had to come to terms with. And I think that was the clearinghouse of what was going on with COVID. We were clearing out the people who basically were sitting back saying, I'm not okay with that. I don't want to die for my faith. And if I had to, I would feel bad. Versus the people who say, I believe in God, I believe what's being taught, and I believe that I'm okay. And so if I put myself out there and something negative happens or death comes, I'm okay with the sacrifice that I make. Obviously, the quote unquote relationships we had with the church community were not that important. Perhaps the love we had for our church family wasn't as important as we claimed. Yeah. It's sometimes, I think sometimes we say a lot of stuff that we just don't mean. We say it because it sounds good. Everything has multiple meanings. Okay, so I don't want to sit back here and misquote, because I know that y'all are going to be like, well, that's not what it means. But you sit here and you say things like, yea, shall I walk through the valley of death, and I shall fear no evil. And so you say things like this, but then when it asks you to walk into the valley of death of COVID, it asks you to walk out here and there's sick people here, and I need you to go ahead and do the work. Even though this evil disease is out here taking people out, but I need you to do the work. So you can mask up, you can put on whatever, but I still need you to do the work. And I want you to go out here and you fear not, the results or repercussions. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But you're not gonna fear the results. You're gonna go do the work. So you say these little terms, and we all say these little terms, but when it comes time to get real and for it to happen, yeah. And so I'm going back to the comment, the relationships that we had with our church community were not that important. The words that you were saying and the commitments that you made and the promises that you made weren't really all that important, or wasn't that real, or we've just been saying some words. Here's the thing the reason that I brought this up. I think we need to be prepared. Not that I think COVID is going to sit here and come back the same way that it came before. I'm not trying to say that at all. The facts are the facts that the government, whether you're a conspiracy theorist or not, has said that COVID has come back at a higher tick than it was before. Not that it's 2020 levels. They have put back out another booster shot. You see people getting sick. These are all things that are factual things that have happened. Okay? Shouldn't be debated. The question for us all is our approach going forward. Even with the little bit of uptick that there is, what did we learn from last time that is going to be different this time? What did we learn from last time that we need to turn around and continue to do this time? What I know is this: regardless of how you feel, your politics or whatever, everyone in the church should feel comfortable when they come in here. So if I don't want to wear a mask, I should feel comfortable sitting in the pew. If I do want to wear a mask, I should be comfortable sitting in the seats. If I believe in COVID, I should feel comfortable in my church. If I don't believe in COVID, I should feel comfortable in church. And I think that's the balance that we all have to be able to make. We need to be able to make a situation where everyone is able to feel comfortable together. And I'm not saying it in the sense of, all right, look, I got this guy in the back. He's coughing. He ain't got no mask on. And he's trying to sit over here by Miss Annie, who's 99 years old. Nah, we don't have to do that. You don't need to be able to go wherever you want to go and touch whoever you want to touch. But you need to be able to, we need to figure out, or we need to make sure that our situation is where everybody can come in and feel comfortable together. If that means everybody has to be 6 feet apart, let's do it. We have to rope it off and mask over it. This is a mask only section, then that's what's up. But we don't need to make anybody feel bad. We don't need to, verbally abuse or persecute anybody. We need to make sure that everybody can come in and come together who wants to come together. Because we need to make sure that the doors are open, because obviously, there are a lot of people who have faith that is very fragile. And the numbers is probably way bigger and way more than we ever thought it was. And so obviously we need to continue to do the work, because most of us have weak faith. You know, how strong is my faith? If COVID got really, really bad, people were dropping dead like that, am I still gonna go out here and do this work? I got to make sure my faith is strong enough to be able to do that. And so obviously we need to keep coming. We need to keep coming. And so we can't make anybody feel bad or close that door off to anybody, because we got to keep coming, because it appears that nobody's faith is strong enough. And so we need to keep coming every week and get it stronger and stronger and stronger. If we really believe and trust God, do we really believe we can control when we are going to die? God needs persons who don't live in fear, but believe that God can and will keep us and provide for us. Yeah. I believe that. And it doesn't mean, and I think that's sometimes a fight. I don't think it means that you have to go maskless, that you have to fight against safety, that you have to fight against science or anything like that. That is not what that statement means for anybody who may think that. Or I assume that that's not what that statement means. I didn't make the statement. But remember, the mask, if you've been out here before, if you've been going to these places before, these hospitals, these nursing homes, these places where the sick and the vulnerable and elderly, you would know that these masks are not for you. It is to protect them. And if you care about others, you will do the work. But as this comment means, it does not mean you need to go out here and be crazy. Don't follow any kind of safety and no rules or anything like that. I'm not even gonna wash my hands. I'm just put my hands all in my face. No. It means be reasonable, be responsible, do what you're supposed to do, but don't walk in fear. So it always reminds me of medical professionals, the doctors who go to these countries where they have all of this disease. They don't stop. They go out here and they don't even, they go out here in these areas where there's turmoil and there's things going on, and they're out here trying to help people, and they know they're not scared in the sense of, all right, like something bad is going to happen, but they know that there's always that possibility. But they do what they got to do anyway. Every Christian should be like that. We should not be any less than that. We should actually be even more than that. But we should all be able to go out here and do what we need to do. And I think and that's the problem. We just need to continuously work on our faith, because I don't think any of us, I'm speaking for myself, I don't think we have the as much faith as we have and we think we have. We need to have as much as we can get, because when it goes and it gets real, we need to be able to have enough that we can go out here and do what we need to do. And so again, as COVID comes back, let's concentrate on what our learnings were. Let's concentrate on what we learned. And the one thing I didn't get to touch on, but I think it's super important, is that churches had to be, and I talked about it a little bit, but we had to be creative then. Let's not let the lack of COVID stifle our creativity. We need to be out front, creative and innovative. Everything that's new, we need to be. We should have been there, done that. We're sitting here in these churches, and we're sitting here with budgets and with money, and we weren't streaming, or we weren't on the internet, or we weren't on social media, and we should have been the first ones out there. I'm gonna get this comment first, and then I'm gonna go to it. Do what you need to do so you can continue to do what God requires of his people. Absolutely. Do whatever you need to do to get yourself ready so that you can continue and do that work. And I think that's the lesson. Yes, that is the lesson. That is the lesson for all of us who are still consistent. And we got to do whatever it is that we need to do to be able to get out there. So if you got to wear a respirator and a mask or a whole entire plastic suit, do whatever you got to do. But we got to continue to get out there and do God's work. We're out of time. So I'll say this real quick. Look, what they say is this. The first innovator on everything, and this is inappropriate, is the pornography industry. When the internet came out, they were the first ones to jump out there. When DVDs came out, They were the first ones to jump out there and monetize that. What were they saying? Basically, when they first started doing the printing press, yeah, they did the Bible, and then they did the they had these little pamphlets where they would just do nasty stuff. But they are always the first ones out there. They say that anything that is anything that's going to be like mainstream, you can tell, and this is also a good business tip. You can tell where something is going to be mainstream. The pornography industry gets into. Right now, they're trying to monetize the whole AI situation, and so that's how you know it's going to be successful. Now, if they're always the first ones out there, why can't we be the first ones out there? Why can't the church be the first ones out there? So if everything that's new is coming in, everything that's new is coming out there, and the first thing people are like, yeah, you know what? Let's see what we can do, with porn and stuff in there. Then why can't it be the church? Everything that new comes out there and say, all right, now how can we make sure that Christ is represented? We don't need to be behind the ball. We need to be ahead of the ball. The earth wasn't created and then God showed up. God was created and then the earth showed up. So we don't need to be sitting here, technology is going along and then the church shows up. The church need to be right there. And so that's what I've learned. That's one of the things that I learned from COVID, looking at what's going on. And so, it's kind of a topical way of looking at it, but it's the reality, it's the truth. And again, if you want to that's a business tip right there. If you want to see what's going on and what's next, you go in and see what that industry is doing. I would love to say, you want to see what's going on and what's next? I need to see what the church is doing. We need to be on the forefront. We need to be up in everything. When TikTok came out here, the first TikTok shouldn't have been some girl dancing would have for her clothes on. The first TikTok needs to be, let me tell you about Christ. All right. Off of my soapbox, went over the time. That's where we're at. One thing really quick before we go, as always, we talk about Thursday, our Bible study. We're here weekly, the same place, Facebook and YouTube at 7 o'clock, service at 10 o'clock. One of our great deacons, Deacon Jeffers, passed away this week. And for those of you who are in the Richmond area, you may know who he is. And so what I want to say now is that we have somebody who great legacy, great family, truly loved the Lord, and was someone who discussed the Lord in their daily walk. So not, I only discuss it on Sunday, or only live it on Sunday, or only am God on Sunday, but somebody who talked about God in your daily conversation, in your daily walk. And so as we mourn the loss, in a sense of not the loss, but we mourn the loss of life of this person, this great man, and going on to eternal life. It's always a reminder that when one of ours leaves here to go on to the next level, then another person needs to step up and take the mantle for what they were doing while they were here. And so I want to say thank you to Mr. Jeffers and his family, but thank you, Mr. Jeffers, for the work that you have done, and be assured that we will take the mantle and continue on and do the great work that you are doing. Thank you for joining us. Have a good one and join us again.